Hello, this is Dee Damson, and today we are going to do another watercolor painting, and this one will be of a fish, a betta fish, and we are going to make it super cool, rainbowy, and really striking. So the first thing I'm going to do is really fast sketch, and this time I will not erase my lines because I want my lines to be helping me, because all those parts that have the heavy lines will have a lot more color, so it will deepen the color for me. The shape is almost like an eye shape, and on the front I separated the area for the head, and now I'm creating little tiny scales. Now the scales on a betta fish, they're a little bit more complicated, so I'm simplifying the scales. At first I just added lines, and now I'm just adding little C's, and that will not quite turn as every single scale to be painted, but I'm gonna have areas that will have more or less. And after we're done with those thousands of scales, a little exaggeration, I will create the fin part, and the top, back, bottom, and side fins all look like they are one fin, but we do have to separate them, and I will show you how I am doing it, and I hope that will be helpful for you. So if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you get notifications for my future videos. And what I'm doing here is creating the top fin, and is pointing backwards. The bottom fin is slightly draping down and also going backwards slightly, and all the lines here are more vertical with maybe a little slant. And then we're gonna have the back fin kind of taking the rest of the space, and all fins are overlapping, so that is going to be another little thing that we're gonna have to do. Make sure that we separate all the fins, and then you have the two front fins, and then you have the little side fin, so we cannot forget that one. And which right now on the sketch I see I don't have it, so I'm going to add it in a second. We have a few more scales right there, and the lip or the mouth of the fish, it kind of goes like a Y shape that it's falling over. So I'm going to, if you look, that top lip is going down and almost under the head slightly, and then the bottom one is just right there, because if the fish open its mouth, it's actually kind of, the mouth looks like it's underneath the head. And now I'm going to use a super transparent turquoise blue, and also I have turquoise green, which I bought separately from my Van Gogh paints, and I love those two colors. This is probably one of my absolute favorite colors. And what I'm doing is I am just dabbing, lifting and dropping my brush on the areas where I think they should be a scale, but I'm not trying to do it every single scale, so I'm just kind of bouncing around and adding a few here and there. And I'm gonna do that throughout the painting with different hues of blues and greens. So we have an area where we can have a little more darkness, like on the bottom, on the belly part of the fish. And the fins are kind of overlapping that back side of the fish too, so we're gonna have to add a little more shadow there. So now I'm going back with a little bit of green. So it's a green, turquoise green. just dabbing and creating illusion, again an illusion of scales without too much work. So I'm gonna add the shadow right on the outside line of the eye. So the eye is created by 3 circles that are directly on top of each other, big, medium, and small. Starting with a little bit darker hue of another blue, just adding dots or specks. It's definitely not dots. Okay, so now we have variation of different blues, and we're gonna continue doing that throughout the whole fish. So this fish in real time, probably it took me good close to an hour to paint it, just because I was adding a lot of little spots and dots, and it was fun playtime. So if you are trying to do the fins, if you have painted the butterflies with me, then you're going to have a very easy time creating the fin, because it's absolutely the same technique, except that is fins and not butterfly wings. So sometimes when we learn a technique, we can apply it to a lot of different things, from fish to flowers. So what I'm doing with the yellow is I'm just dragging my brush from where the fin or tail is starting and pulling it down almost midway. Now here's a little trick. We are doing yellow on the top, starting with the yellow. It's going to be orangey, more orange, but then we have blue coming from underneath going up. So we want those 2 areas to be dry before they meet, because we don't want a lot of green in there. We want to keep our orange, and we want to keep our yellows, and we want to keep our blues, and we don't want them to turn too green. It will happen, but it has to be very little. So we want to keep those strong colors kind of separated. Starting with the orange, kind of pulling lines, and again I'm pulling them from where the fin is starting and pulling away from the fish. So all those directions of the brush are very important, so you can create a better illusion. So now we're starting with the blue, and I am trying not to go close to the yellow yet. So I'm applying more paint than water. My paint is not on blocks. My paint is from tubes, so it's pasty, and I am not really adding a lot of water to this. And the areas where fins or tails are overlapping, I am going to increase the color. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to emphasize on that area. So with the blue, I went in between the areas where the yellow was non-existent, just to make sure that I have that transparent look of the blue next to transparent yellow. And that's going to be our first layer. So the tail is huge. So what we're doing is we have few areas that are overlapping. So this fish is not puffing, it's in motion. So the tail is moving a little bit more backwards and overlapping. Already the blue looks great, but we have to do a few more layers of this. So every time I'm adding the blue on the tail or the fins, I'm moving from the end towards the yellow and not the other way around. And I'm really fast lifting this brush away from the paper. So obviously on the shadow areas I can do that, I can go from any direction, but on the other areas I want this brush stroke to have that direction. Now increasing the volume of the color a little bit here. And somewhere halfway on that painting, it's also a place that you can stop with the fins and the tail and leave it as it is. But we'll go a little bit more after that. So the tail of this fish looks very similar also to a flower. So if you have painted a flower, that's going to be easy for you, and vice versa. So everything that you do is going to help you, just making it better and more relaxing. Adding that darker edge, and after that fast pulling in those lines. And I really want to create an edge that it's not perfect. That's very jaggedy. So now we're gonna go from the top. Now I'm not worried when I'm adding the red, when red and blue mixes, because a little bit of purple is okay. I really wanted to stay away from the greens. And I will add all the colors on the side of the painting in one point so you can see what colors I'm using. But you can create your own better. You can do it more purple, you can do it with more bright yellows. There is green ones. They're beautiful fish. See how I separated this in few different sections? This is almost getting close to an area where you can leave it and add the mouth and the eye and maybe something for background, very pale, and be done with it. Or you can push it a little bit further and see what happens. So adding more red on the top of the bottom fin and pulling those lines, or like the front fin, I'm pulling it towards the fish. And also there's this little baby fin right there on the front, so we don't want to forget that. I have a little bit of purple, so I'm going around just adding a dot or two of purple. Here's the mouth. So I'm not making it red, I'm just making it kind of a dirty blue purple, purplish, reddish color. Making it brighter, that little area there. This is the time where we can get in trouble with the green. And if it does happen, it's not a bad thing, but we just want to keep it to minimum, or at least I wanted to keep it to minimum, and I do see it, but I'm gonna try to add a little stronger colors here to see if I can take that green a little bit away. Now the easiest thing to do is when you're painting is to flip your image around, but I really do not want it to make you guys dizzy, so I'm keeping my image straight, but you can turn your painting, your canvas around to make it easy on your hand. It will be better. The paintbrush that I'm using, it's very tiny. We're starting again to increase the color, the hue of the blue, so I'm using a different blue. I'm mixing some of the blues, but we went from the turquoise blue to kind of a navy. So you can use the darkest blue you have, and also you can put a little bit of black in your blue to make it even darker. So adding those lines was very important, so that's why I kept on saying just follow the shape and pull that brush from either the outside of the fin in or from the fish towards the center of the fin or tail. I am not trying to meet the lines together, even though on the fish they are meeting, but I am creating a good illusion. So I'm totally faking it. The lines are connected just because there's so many of them. On the lips, so now you can see the falling Y shape for the lips and that shadow underneath. So the reason why I'm leaving the eye out and I'm not doing the eye yet is to make sure that everything around is dry, because the eye is going to have a very pale gray and then black, and then it's going to have a little highlight in the center. So here is all the colors. You don't have to use exactly the colors I'm using, but pretty much this was all the colors in my palette plus few extra. Let's add a few more scales there. And before we add a few little things, we're gonna just do a quick background. So I'm pushing my brush sideways and then I'm pulling up, kind of wiggling the brush and away from the paper, creating this ground underwater greenery. That underwater greenery should be very vague because it's in water, so we don't want it somewhere back far away. The fish is not entangled in it, so we don't want to have too much details on that. Unless we want to have details, then we can pull a few greeneries closer that are a little bit darker, and then we're gonna have that depth. Gonna do the same thing from the top, kind of coming down and filling in that white area with a little bit of blue. We can go back into the eye area, and now we can make that eye pop out a little bit. Also with much darker blue, we're gonna go around and give a little more shadow. So we're gonna increase the shadow right underneath body and the fin connection, a little shadow there, right where the fins are overlapping on the back. A few little lines on the scales that will be helpful. eye, so I did have to wait between the outer eye and the inner eye. And now our eye popped out. Give a little more outlining here, shadow. Just by adding a little more darkness, we're gonna push this slightly backwards. Because if it's too white, it's going to really pop out. Going in, adding more lines. Slightly darker, so this is purple, what I'm adding here on the orange part. And on the blue part, I'm adding bluish, darker blue. Increasing the shadow right here just to make it seem like it's really overlapping. I want to put an emphasis on that part. And one here. Just added a few little bubbles in the water. They're barely visible. So there were so many locations where you can stop the painting process and leave it as it is. Again, increasing that darkness on the edge, which makes it so cool. Even with the blue, I'm gonna go right on the end of that fin, and this one too. Framing it a little bit better. There is our overlap. This is pretty much where you can stop. Now I'm gonna go one step forward, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you get notifications from my future videos. And what I'm using here is a really sparkly medium. I will have also this in the a link in the description below if you're interested. It's like pearly color or pearly transparent medium that sometimes I add, and sometimes after I add I kind of feel bad about it. So I painted this fish twice, so I wanted to see how that looks. I do like it with, and also I like it without. It really depends on what you feel like. So if you want a little sparkle, you can add it, and if you don't add it. It gives a real shimmer to your painting. On the camera you cannot tell, but pretty much that's it. So enjoy, let me know what you guys think, let me know what you want me to paint, and happy painting. Thanks for watching.